appears as though the inmates are running the asylum, as the Matt Reeves produced Arkham Asylum TV series will no longer be moving forward at Max. Stick around to hear the full news. I'm Brennan Sum for the New Wave Nerds. Subscribe down below for more nerd content and commentary. Now let's get into the news. Variety has the exclusive Arkham Asylum TV series not moving forward at Max. As Variety exclusively reported in October of 2022, Antonio Campos had come on board to serve as writer and showrunner of the series, which was originally meant to be set within the world of Matt Reeves' The Batman. But according to an individual with knowledge of the situation, Campos' version will not proceed. It is still possible, though, that a new project set within the infamous Gotham City Asylum could be developed in the future, the individual noted. So I was definitely saddened to see this news. I mean, we had just discussed on our segment about the Penguin TV show trailer that I was really, really excited for this show. I was curious to see what they were going to do with it. You know, it's not often that we get to see Arkham Asylum really portrayed in live action. It's not often that we get to see it on the screen in general, as it's not even particularly featured in a ton of the animated Batman stuff. So I was really curious to see what they were going to do with it. How were they going to design the asylum? What was the origin and mythos that they were going to take? Obviously, there have been different interpretations of Arkham Asylum, from the more clinical perspective to a more supernatural, right? There is multiple storylines where Arkham Asylum has somewhat of a curse, like I said, a mythos built around it. And so I was curious to see what they were going to do with it. Now, I was much more interested when it was a Matt Reeves Batverse project. I thought that would have been a brilliant way to sort of expand that universe and sort of further see the grounded nature of this film and of this series, of this Elseworlds property. But after it was announced that it was going to be a part of the DCU, I wasn't completely disheartened. I thought it would still be interesting. I was mostly interested in the fact, or rather in seeing how James Gunn would want this asylum to look in his universe. Because I think that gives us a pretty interesting insight into how the Batman side of the DCU is going to operate overall. By taking a look at his rogues gallery, at taking a look at the city and at some of the iconic locations there, namely obviously Arkham Asylum, I thought it would give us a pretty good insight as to the direction that we would be taking the Brave and the Bold and future Batman properties as well. Plus, it gives us ample opportunities to expand and further out. There are more ways to bring in, like, the Bat family, which we assume has already been mostly fully formed in James Gunn's The Brave and the Bold. There is this series could sort of serve as the jumping off point for a lot of these villains and make their inclusion in some of these other movies and other series or properties or whatever feel a little more expected, or not expected, I suppose, but a little more, I guess, satisfying is the word I normally use. A story that feels natural and feels normal and feels like it has progressed and not just come out of nowhere. I think that would have been really, really interesting. And I'm super curious to know what sort of villains would have been in the asylum at the time of this series. Personally, I would hope for some of the more obscure villains, some of the villains that might even be considered campy. I would hope for, like, say, the Calendar Man or Holiday, or some of those from that have been revitalized and sort of made much more serious and dark in Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale's, like, The Long Halloween and Dark Victory and such in that series. I think The Haunted Knight is the third one, is the name that I was forgetting earlier. But I was really, really interested to see what is the direction that we're going to take this. Is it going to be a sort of, fantastical asylum that's not going to feel very real? Or is it going to be a much more, Matt Reeves-esque Arkham that is sort of grounded and attempts to make these these villains seem more or less feasible, right? I thought it would have been really, really fun. I was excited to see more work from Matt Reeves. We've discussed here before how we're big fans of him and his work. Obviously, The Batman is incredible, but also the War and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes are incredible, incredible movies. And so I was really, really interested in seeing what was going to happen there. I hope that as the individual notes that at some point we will get to see a series like this. I think there's just so much that you can do there. There's so much that you can use this as a staging ground for so many future stories to sort of expand the universe, right? Obviously, with the inclusion of the of multiple heroes in James Gunn's Superman, this is obviously a massively expansive universe that has multiple heroes. And as we mentioned with the Brave and the Bold, presumably there is already a Bat family. Or at the very least, it would be weird if it was only Damian Wayne Robin and there were no other members. But presumably there's a mostly fully formed Bat family. And so I would have liked to see this series set up future storylines for, like, say, a Nightwing series or movie, or like a Batgirl. I mean, Batgirl, there was the... Oh, when was that? Was that 2020 or 2021 when there was the Batgirl series that had been shelved to much of the fans' dismay, despite the fact that of hearing that it was, some people said it was really good, but other people said that it just wouldn't move, anything, any dials, anything, because it was so poorly made. I don't know. Nonetheless, it's a character that people definitely want to see, and so and I want to see, right? Like, I want to see the Bat family explored. It's one of the most fascinating units in DC Comics to me, and so, like I said, I hope that we get to see some more of this. I hope that eventually they come back around to this. I don't really know why it has been canceled. It just seems weird to me. We've got a million other shows going on. Why is this one different from any of the others? Perhaps it just didn't fit in, or would have cost too much, or whatever. But I think the draw is there. I think if they had made it, people would come. I think there's certainly sections of the fandom, as with anything. There are certain people who would have been irritated that this was made and wouldn't have thought it necessary, and it was just a money grab or whatever. But I think overall, people were excited for this. This is something that people, if they didn't necessarily want to see, it's something that people would go to see because it's interesting, because it's different from what we normally see from the DC stuff. But I don't know. I guess let's just get back to the article here. Otherwise, I'll just talk about how sad I am for another hour. Thus ends, at least for now, the show's complicated path to the screen. It was originally announced in July 2020 with a series commitment, but at that time it was meant to focus on the inner workings of the Gotham PD as featured in The Batman. Terrence Winter was attached to write and executive produce, but he left the project in November of 2020 due to creative differences. Giri Haji creator Joe Barton was then brought in to write, but Warner Brothers ultimately parted ways with Barton as well. I also would have been interested in a show about the GCPD. I think that unit is really interesting, right? Originally announced in 2020, this would have been when it was in the Batverse, but nonetheless, I think that still would have been maybe fun to see in the DCU, just because then we get a little bit of a primer. Like, what is the relationship between Batman and the city here? Is Batman the Dark Knight? Is Batman the vigilante who subverts justice, who strikes fear in the hearts of men? Or is this the type of Batman where he's a little bit more of a symbol of hope to the city? Has he done good? Is he recognized as a hero and not a vigilante? I think that would have been really interested to see. Ultimately, I think I'm glad that they moved away from the GCPD towards the Arkham Asylum. I think that's a much more interesting story to tell. But I would definitely like to see something that further explores the Gotham City Police Department, especially in Matt Reeves' Batverse. So I hope we get a series based on that in that Elseworlds plane at some point. Reeves would then say in an interview in 2022 that the Gotham PD show was not happening, but that the story had started to evolve into what became the Arkham Asylum show, which he described as being like a horror movie or haunted house that is Arkham. Campos then joined, but not long after that, it was announced that James Gunn and Peter Safran would be taking over DC Studios and launching a rebooted film and television universe. In a series of social media posts in December of 23, Gunn said that the show was still in development and clarified that it was meant to be set within the new DCU rather than in the same world as the Batman. This is all not to say that the world Reeves built in the Batman will lie fallow. Fallow, I haven't heard that word. That's interesting. I like it, though. The Penguin, a crime drama series with Colin Farrell reprising the role of the titular supervillain, is scheduled to debut on Max in September. Reeves is also at work on The Batman Part 2, though the film's release date was recently pushed back from October of 25 to October of 26. Gunn and Safran, meanwhile, are currently deep into relaunching DC's connected film and TV universe. Production is now underway on a new Superman film starring David Corenswet, with multiple other films in the works. It was also recently announced that a Green Lantern's TV series has been greenlit, but it will be branded as an HBO original rather than Max, due to a new content delineation HBO and Max boss Casey Bloys revealed to Variety in June. Now, as I mentioned before, we're really excited about the Penguin show here. I think it's going to be absolutely great. You know, they mentioned that the Batman Part 2 has been pushed back. Relatively recently, James Gunn took to, I believe it was Threads, to reply to a comment asked by one of his followers. And the question was, is the script done, or excuse me, it was when will the script be done for the Batman Part 2? And James Gunn replied, it'll be done when Matt Reeves says it's done. So we've got, a little ways to go. Presumably they're making progress. Hopefully we'll get an update from that soon. Although with the pushed back release date, I would seriously doubt that we're going to be seeing anything really all that soon. In the article there, it's also mentioned the Lanterns TV series. We did a whole segment on that where we discussed how excited we are. And by we, I mean I, because it was a solo episode. I didn't do that one with Shade. I think it's going to be really fun. It's a true detective-esque mystery, which is really, really interesting to me. It follows Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, two of the most famous Lanterns. And then we've also got Guy Gardner being introduced in the Superman movie. So we're really building out the Green Lantern core, which I think is something that is really, really interesting to me. That's something that I will be, really excited to see. I'm trying to look up right now the release date, or the alleged release date, for Batman the Brave and the Bold. They haven't even given a date. I was just wondering if the dates would coincide with the Batman Part 2, or rather not coincide, but if they would conflict, because that would be an interesting problem to sort of put yourself in if you're DC Studios. But definitely I would say go and give those other videos a watch. Let me know down below, what do you guys think of the Arkham Asylum series? Is this something that you were interested in, and because of that you're a little disappointed like me that it was canceled? Or I guess canceled maybe isn't the proper word, but it was halted. Or was this something that you didn't necessarily care about, right? Was this one that you were like, oh, it would have been fun to see, but it's not exactly high on the list? Let me know down below for sure. I'm Brennan Sem for the New Wave Nerd. Subscribe down below for more nerd content and commentary. We'll be back tomorrow with a brand new news segment, and I will see you guys then.